that we are recording this. So, Jonas, you can hit the recording button.
Yep.
And yeah, I would like to welcome you here in the good room, finally, at the first event of the crawlers of Lindsay and Jess at this festival. The first of, well, 5 events actually in total, which is quite amazing, and we are excited about all of them. And before I give the floor to the crawlers, I would just like to say that this festival is supported by public funding, which we are very grateful for. We received support from the Abacus Foundation and Slovak Arts Council and the City of Prague. So yeah, that's the official thank you at the beginning. And then more practical information. We discussed with Lindsay and Jess before that we can chat both here in the Zoom chat, but you can also join the Discord channel, the larger like Discord festival channel. I am posting link to the chat here now. And yeah, I will stop talking now and give the floor to the crawlers to introduce their portals.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just a quick little admin thing, everyone. I posted a link also in the group chat to a PDF that we would hope that you can all download. You can message anytime in the chat in case there's any issues. It has all like the sort of more formal instructions about portal making there, so please check it out.
Yeah, and we apologize. We had at least attempted to try to get this to you sooner so that you might maybe have some things prepared, but even if you are unprepared, we can still maybe just do some making together and have a bit of a chat about kind of what this kind of practice of making portals even is, and what it means in lots of different spaces. So I don't know, yeah, we can just kind of improvise. Also very exciting that this is the first ever event or I guess first public art project that Lindsay and I have actually done together after she messaged me end of last year to collaborate, and here we are. It's very exciting.
Yeah, Justin and I have actually known each other since about like 2017, I want to say, when I used to live in Australia, and we've always like passed by each other in the art world. Jess also wrote an article about my artwork as well, so it's nice to like now make other things that are not just
official.
Yeah,
it's official. Cool. So something else that I wanted to begin with is to acknowledge that the land that I live and work on belongs to the traditional owners, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. So even though people might know it as Melbourne, Australia, it's called Nam, and it's a part of the Kulin Nation. And we recognize that Indigenous sovereignty in so-called Australia was never ceded, and that First Nation peoples are the first artists and scientists. Yeah, and I think this is quite relevant when we think about making portals, because obviously choosing a place to build a portal or that kind of practice does, within ecomancy, does kind of require us to consider what other, land uses, land ownership, kind of the sovereignty of different people, non-human organisms, places, what the other uses are that are maybe erased by kind of the dominant mode of building. So I think the first thing I kind of wanted to do was just to check in who is here. So maybe if we went around and kind of said, if you want to, I mean, your name or however you want to present yourself here today. Obviously, the internet's got a great history of anonymity, so if that's your preference, go for it. If you want to tell us your pronouns, you can. And also maybe where you're tuning in from. So it might be, whose land are you working on or living on? Or, are you tuning in from your bedroom? Are you tuning in from you know, I don't know, somewhere out and about, or yeah. So maybe we'll go around and introduce ourselves. Should we start with Lindsay? Do you want to? So
Yeah.
So I'm in Melbourne, Australia. My name's Jess, and I use they them pronouns. Yeah, Lindsay.
Yeah, so I'm Lindsay. I'm the other half of Crawlers. I'm based in Berlin, Germany, and I use she, her, they, them pronouns.
If anyone else wants to just jump in, I don't know how the order of Zoom works, like how to kind of.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Becky from London, in London, or in my magic mushroom portal. Lovely to see you all. My pronouns are she, her.
Okay, thanks.
I can go next. I am currently in Helsinki, Finland, and here is my portal. Their name is Bruce. They are standing with me at all the Zooms and listening to absolutely everything. So.
Wonderful.
I'm Anna. I'm also in Nam.
I'm Danny. Likewise.
in Jess' living room.
So this is our cat.
That's our cat lurking.
Hi, Trike.
I use she, her pronouns.
So do I. So does the cat.
Hi, I'm Lycan. I'm also in Nam, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm in my bedroom portal at the moment.
Oh, wonderful. Hello.
Hi.
Hi,
Dan.
Hi. Shastra, maybe?
Hi, yes. I'm Shastra. I'm up in Brisbane, Meanjin, and right now I'm at the University of Queensland on Yagara and Turrbal land.
Oh, so good to see you again as well.
Good to see you. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Is it Marie-Louise?
Yes, exactly. Hey everyone. Super nice to be here with you in Zoom. I'm currently in my mom's home in Denmark on the west coast, and yeah, just excited. And this is dried sphagnum moss that's sitting behind me, very magnified.
Beautiful. We love sphagnum moss.
Yes, right. It's so gorgeous.
And Rosie, did you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Rosie. I'm also in Brisbane, and I use she, her pronouns. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Hi.
If anyone else wanted to, yeah.
I just wanted to say hi. I am Enrique. I'm also here in the north of Denmark, and they are also with me in my bedroom, the portal to where I'm talking from. I use he, him pronouns. Yeah.
Is there anyone else? I think that's everyone. Anyway, if anyone else comes in, I guess, Lindsay, let me know.
Will do.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess when we are talking about building portals, it's kind of, I just wanted to kind of draw, I mean, it's probably quite an obvious link where it's interesting that we are meeting in a sort of a virtual space, which is some version of a portal at least. Yeah, we have so many different people from so many different places, and also all of our non-human kin who are joining us, which I'm so stoked to be introduced to as well. I have put all of my plants, well, actually there's a couple over there that I haven't included, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think I am so happy to see everyone kind of on board with this kind of thing. And yeah, thank you for joining us today. So part of this workshop is kind of about like creating a bit of space to kind of like actually do some making together, which we had this PDF that we tried to send out. I think there's been some problems with that, but it's in the chat. now. So if you have been able to prepare any materials or something, or if you're watching on the live stream and you kind of want to follow along, you might want to have a look at the PDF. Although it's totally fine as well if you're not prepared, because we also kind of weren't.
Hey Jess, do they need physical materials or could they also use digital materials?
Well, we might get to that, but I am pretty keen to have some discussions about what we think of as being physical or digital. And so, yeah, we are kind of like, you know, what we've written in that PDF kind of relates to physical objects, but also we do welcome like any kind of expanded approaches to what a portal can be, and what even is physical or digital or otherwise. So anyway, I might start with just a bit of a preamble of kind of some of my understandings of portals. So loosely, we might understand portals as openings that allow transit or connection between spaces. And we kind of came up with this because the Uroboros theme this year is designing in troubling times. And portals, I think, offer a very interesting aspect of design and what that actually means. So in a more traditional definition of design, we might think of portals as human-made or architectural. So we have things like doors, gates, archways, tunnels, passageways. We could even include sewers, paths, roads, wells, pipelines, electrical cables, and so on. Yeah, so basically anything that allows transport between two different places or many different places. And yeah, so with that, the human design element has kind of expanded to include this virtual version of portal architecture. So when we are meeting on Zoom, or we offer also a window into the Zoom room via YouTube for some of the people who are watching on the live stream, those things could also be considered portals. And this has kind of been embraced by computing, the language of computing. So portals are also like the web pages that catalog a number of links on a certain topic. So you might have come across like Wikipedia portals, or it might also be like an intranet portal, which allows like certain users with the access passwords into like the otherwise walled areas of cyberspace. The idea of portals in a virtual space is also bled into video game design, where they feature heavily in world building. So most famously, the video game that's titled Portal, and Portal 2, uses the physics of this kind of game design to create complicated puzzles that you have to solve to move through the game. And if you are interested in portals and you haven't looked into that, I am not a gamer by any means, but I have played it a little bit, and it's a really interesting way of, I guess, exploring that as an actual kind of a narrative device, which is what we are also going to be doing today. And I think also it makes sense that portals kind of occur in video games because they do have a long history in like other kinds of game design. You know, even a quick search will come up with Magic the Gathering portals, kind of all of the fantasy aspects of that, and even something as simple as Snakes and Ladders. You have, you know, a ladder leading you from one point on the board up to like the ahead of, you know, maybe your competitors, and then a snake that leads you back to the start. So yeah, just now that we've kind of covered a bit of the kind of, I guess, the ideas of different definitions of portals in a human sense, I think we might, I was going to say that we should like maybe prepare the space, but I'm interested in like how many people are actually making portals here today, or if we're kind of more just going to like kind of prepare you to do it at some later point, given that we didn't get the PDF out necessarily. Is anyone keen to build a portal today?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'll just like so obviously you can be building portals as a human in like the internet or physical space built environments. I've kind of also noticed that like during the COVID pandemic, a lot of artists whose work might be very kind of like physically based have become quite fascinated with portals. And kind of across the board. And also people kind of using this term as it relates to elements of fantasy, mythology, and magic. And I think it's interesting that when we kind of are all experiencing like limited transport and interconnection with others, we've turned to this kind of, virtual or sort of spiritual version of connecting and transit. So we can also expand the definition to portals that are not designed by humans, or maybe even not designed. So it could include things like physical or spiritual gateways to the astral plane or the afterlife, mushroom rings that transport children to fairyland, ley lines, black holes, caves, volcanoes. So we begin to include those portals that are formed by other species as well, things like burrows, wormholes, migratory routes, seed dispersal, ocean currents. And yeah, I think if we just kind of expand that version of what we think of as a portal or what we think of even as design, we can kind of get a different idea of what kind of portals we might want to make. So Lindsay, where do you think we should go with the making side of things?
I think we should probably get started in setting the place, since we're all kind of coming in from, it seems like a lot of us may be in either other people's homes or our own homes or all over the world. So maybe like we should all set space in a way, because we are coming now into the Zoom room as well, which is its own portal, and like maybe make our space.
So if you have had a chance to look at the PDF, or if you want to refer back to it later, or if you want to open it now, the first part of a portal, of building a portal, is to set your intention. So you might want to think about what kind of a portal you want to build, what you want to enable access to, what you want to summon and encourage to move through that portal, or if there are other elements that you want to block or inhibit or deter, then that might also play a role in your portal construction. So that kind of informs like the entire, like all of the other steps. So yeah, that would be kind of the first thing to establish. And maybe you guys have all had a think about that, or you might want to in future. And the next thing would be the choice of location, which we've kind of discussed already, where we're all kind of tuning in from. So if you are practicing kind of ecomancy, it might be an outdoor location. For me, that would mean doing a Zoom call in the dark, which I thought might not be the best. So I'm in here, but I've got the plants, and actually I'm in my bedroom, so it's a very personal space, which, I think a personal space can be, make a portal sort of more powerful, but also potentially spaces that are relevant to your intention. So that might not be a personal space. But the other thing that we kind of suggest is that you kind of consider how the space is used by others and what it means for others. So that might be things like the traditional owners, and what it means for you to live on the land that you are living on, and who is able to access it and who isn't, and whether it's owned or whether it's open. And then also another thing that we kind of encourage in ecomancy is to consider the other non-human users of the space. So
hey Jess, what do we mean when we're talking about ecomancy? Because we're bringing this up a lot in our series of workshops.
We indeed are, and we have not really, we haven't really gone into this very much. So ecomancy is kind of a term that we've begun using for this project. We have kind of combined the term eco as in ecology, or the oikos, which is also where the word eco comes from. So this also includes, like, that's where like the word economics came from. So ecomancy might relate to the natural environment or like the ecology, it might, the ecosystem, not only in a kind of very traditional definition of nature, but also in a more sort of networks and the idea of the home and what that means in sort of an expanded sense. So ecomancy, magic to do with those elements, I guess, of our network or our living. I think that's good. Is that, Lindsay, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think what me and Jess have really put together when we're like creating this workshop is seeing how we can look at our relationship with our environment and our surroundings and our technology in a way that like goes beyond just more scientific investigation, which I think I'm quite used to in my practice, and Jess also is quite used to from a lot of the subject matter that Jess deals with, and see how we can kind of go back to some more like magic-based ritual systems and spiritual systems as well, and find place within that in 2021, where we feel like that has been largely neglected. So ecomancy is kind of this sort of, not a return, but like a summoning of sort of more of a different holistic kind of connection with how we relate to different entities and objects in our space.
Yeah, and I think neither of us really have a very, we're interested in exploring these ideas. It's difficult to figure out kind of what a set position on this is, but how there is a demand on scientists to kind of act as objective sources, which might lead to, you know, maybe not addressing the actual like embedded cultural biases in how science works, or even I know for a lot of climate or climate scientists or ecologists and other people who have this expert knowledge, who perhaps put in positions where they can't talk about what they believe or what they think their knowledge should be translated into in the real world, because of the scientific objectivity. And I mean, there are problems with doing that. So I guess we are trying to explore maybe some of the histories of where these things split. So the the origins of science coming out of like a lot of kind of folklore and magic and those kinds of systems that were people trying to understand how the universe worked or how the world around them worked, and that have informed like the current way that we do practice science. So we don't think that it's really useful to ignore that history. Yeah, so we want to actively engage with it. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it's a good segue into how portals, like why we make them and how it fits into that sort of ecomancy.
For sure. So hopefully you guys have all kind of had to think about like where, like this place that you're operating in and where you might be building a portal. So yeah, the reason that we are doing this workshop in the context of ecomancy is because it kind of made sense that like the form of a portal would be an opportunity to look at that split between culture and nature, or magic and science, and to build a portal between the two of them, to kind of dissolve these walls that have been built between them consciously. And so we are going to make these portals in physical space today, or in your if there's some other version of a portal that you want to build, like maybe your own like computer or whatever, and then that we are drawing on the traditions of kind of object-based magic and ritual magic, And then we are going to translate it into the digital space to kind of engage with chaos magic and some of those other kind of more like tech future approaches to magic as well. So maybe we could kind of introduce, hang on, just thinking. So I might show some of my ideas for how to build a portal. Does that sound good? Okay. In what we have written about building portals, we have identified a few key features after you've prepared the space and considered who uses it and you know, any other things that you might need to consider about that. We have the frame, which is, this is my, what is it, like Art Attack, like the cooking show, something I prepared earlier. So here we have the frame. And the frame we've kind of identified as like a key element of a portal. It kind of creates the edges of it. The existence of a portal implies the impermeable boundaries around it. So you might have like the wall with a door and the door frame. The size of a rabbit's burrow prevents predators from entering it. And even capture codes deliberately test whether like a bot can enter it or not. So when you're choosing a frame, you want to think about who you want to be able to access the portal and who you don't want to be able to access it. Or if not who, then maybe other things like, you know, different energies or forces, whatever kind of approach you have to magic in general. The frame also determines the kind of the lifespan of the portal. So in magic, you have, even in magic, you have these dualisms set up where like people talk about high magic and low magic. And high magic refers to kind of secret societies that practice rituals and keep secret knowledge over like many years. You have like, I don't know, probably the, yeah, this kind of idea of like a secret society, eyes wide shut, Knights Templar kind of approach to these things. Or you have what people call low magic or natural magic, which researchers kind of talk about how this was practiced by peasants. It might be what we refer to as witchcraft, and it kind of is described that way because it is not owned by the maybe the dominant classes or people, and it connects with maybe the non-human, the other, all of these things. And in Ecomancy, we kind of refer to like, we refer to this, we don't call it low magic because it's very powerful and not, we don't think that it's a very good idea to kind of create these secret, lasting, enduring kind of kingdoms of magic that are gatekept. But yeah, so we want you to consider when you're making your portals, maybe what kind of a frame you choose, because that will determine the access and the cost and the endurance of your portal. And we want you to consider whether you want your portal to be something that needs to be guarded and maintained and kept, and yeah, by, you know, some sort of, I don't know, yeah, or if you want it to be something that can be temporary and that, you know, in Ecomancy, we want to build our portals out of things that we can use for our own purposes, and then once we're done, we can disassemble them, we can return them to the ecosystem for others to use, and so on. Yeah, so mine is built from some eucalyptus branches that I found down the street from me. And yeah, I kind of have like twined it together with some plastic thread here, but we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, has anyone else come with like a frame or any other kind of plans for their portals?
Yes. I have brought some things from my studio, and I have this ceramic frame that I made a few years ago, and with no real plan for it. And I think that this is its destiny to become a portal. So I've brought that in the hope that it can finally become something.
I love that, and I think it's very good because at least in my own art practice, I know that there's a tendency to kind of make these things and then hoard them for the right moment. And we want to keep the flow of matter moving through space and through different uses. So if we can put something to use and then give it back for future use, then that's great. Thank you so much, Anna. Has anyone else had to think about how they might, or have, if anyone else has any ideas about the frames in portals?
I didn't come very prepared, but I really be talking that I have a bunch of seaweed outside of my veranda drying that has been kind of rehydrating in the rain and then rehydrated nicely just in the last day or so. So it's been going from sort of solid to mushy and back to solid again. So I might just pop out and get that and attempt to make at least part of the frame. It might be the bottom half of the frame to start with or something, but we'll see how I go.
For sure. And obviously we meant to have more kind of materials for you guys ahead of time, but also this should be something to maybe just inspire some thoughts about how you might make them, and you can kind of work on it in your own time as well. And so the next part of building a portal that we kind of identified is the binding material, which I said I would get back to. So for a portal like Anna's, maybe there isn't so much of a need for the binding material for the actual frame itself, but there might be something that you wanted to consider for attaching the other objects to the portal, or locating it in space. So for mine, I've used like Scooby strings, which are a plastic thread, I guess. They are bright orange, which is kind of relevant to me for the purpose of my portal, which is relating to these kind of orange fungi that you can probably see in the background of Lindsay's screen. And I used the plastic specifically because it reminds me of sort of my own childhood and sort of 90s nostalgia. And I realized that also plastic is a kind of a very non-biodegradable material to use in this context. And perhaps kind of questioning like the role of how do we manage like the idea of sort of permanence between frames and portals and the materials that we use to build them, and the delight that these kind of plastic materials inspire in us, and also the kind of long-term consequences of them. Anyway, that's my own ideas about that, but you might be able to use your own binding medium, so you could use like rope or thread or glue or whatever, but we do suggest that you actually make a conscious decision about what it is that you're going to use, so that it's can help to contribute to the power of your portal. All right, so before we get to the objects bit, how are we going, Lindsay?
We're going good. I was wondering though, if since the PDF we had trouble sending it out, if people can't make a portal today, can we maybe talk about a little bit about the long-term kind of plans for the portals?
Yeah, perfect. I was just thinking that I'd go into that.
Yeah.
Cool. So obviously we're making portals in like either physical or kind of closed, virtual space today, that are for ourselves and that have, our own objects and intentions set up in them. but again, we kind of want to return our portals back to a larger ecosystem. So this workshop's actually kind of part of a larger project that we're going to keep running for hopefully a while, where we have been building a web portal on our website that will allow you to charge your portals, or translate them and charge them into a virtual space. And then they can become a part of our larger sort of portal ecosystem. Lindsay's just sharing the landing page here, and it's very much still in the works. So please be aware of, you know, falling tunnels and mine shafts and so on as you move through the space. There might be some problems with it. But the plan is to hyperlink each image in a way that will transport users to different parts of the internet that you might not passively encounter, as a kind of anti-algorithm. So this part of the project pays tribute to the legacy of chaos magic in early web development. Chaos magic has a pretty nebulous definition, kind of deliberately, but loosely it's a philosophical approach to magic that says effects occur as a result of belief, regardless of the objective truth of that belief. So it's kind of a magic equivalent of postmodernism, where the rules or language or symbols or rituals of like defined forms of magic aren't privileged over those that are self-made, and that all magic is only powerful in any sort of real or objective sense because of people's belief in them, and how often they're repeated. So, you know, one of the main kind of practices in chaos magic is creating your own sigils, which are like symbols that kind of have like letter forms, and then you know, either if you know, traditionally charging them with like kind of your magical intention, and then casting them off and letting go of them, you know, burning them essentially. But some practitioners also talk about hypersigils, which are symbols that kind of create, kind of gain this critical mass because of their reproduction and their dominance in society, and how that has the effect of kind of creating power for those sigils. So things like brand logos and potentially memes could be considered to be hypersigils. So when the World Wide Web began in 1989, chaos magic was actually really popular in kind of countercultures that were engaging on the internet, and it proliferated in online forums. So it's become embedded in anarchist, cyberpunk, and hacker cultures. And it's kind of in the foundations of the internet. It's given us things like Wikipedia, and also like Easter eggs and those kinds of things. And yeah, very relevant when we think about people's access to the internet and what portals are enabled and what aren't. So our portal of portals, which is, I think, in the chat, is that right, Lindsay?
The portal of portals is experiencing some blinking complications, and I'm fixing it as we speak.
Yes. Portals require a lot of maintenance, which is why people with many resources are able to maintain strong portals, and why people who don't have many resources, they find their portals decay very quickly. And here we are. So yeah, just on that, I guess. So our goal with this is to kind of experiment with this way of kind of connecting rhizomally and cross-pollinating, and avoiding this sort of bottleneck, which is an ecological term that is used to refer to kind of loss of biodiversity and you know, non-human populations. And we see this bottleneck of algorithms and internet use as well that's affecting the diversity of our ecosystems online and offline. So with the website and this side of the project, like our present capacity to pull this off is quite limited, because both of us have grown up in the era of Facebook, Instagram, Spotify. And a big part of this project for us, and you know, potentially for you if you're if you're interested in this side of things, is about kind of pushing through those walls ourselves. So I always kind of, you know, grew up thinking that the internet and so on was kind of evil and exploitative, and ecology and visual arts were at odds. I don't think that's the case anymore, but it's probably still a dominant attitude for a lot of people. And particularly for those of us who have been excluded from technological literacy for other reasons, like gender, race, class, language, like access to digital equipment and so on. So yeah. I'm just thinking, before I kind of keep talking about some more ideas about the kind of the online project. So that's hopefully one day, like at some point when you finish these portals to a point where you're happy with, you can submit them to that link, and we will charge them in cyberspace. Yeah, but I think perhaps we want to come back a bit to maybe some of your plans for making. Lindsay, do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah. So I was thinking, since I currently also don't have, I was thinking more of making a digital frame, and I was wondering, kind of, do these same sort of rules apply for doing it with non-physical objects necessarily?
Okay. So yeah, so when we talk about nature or low magic or object-oriented magic, we're looking at symbols and the choice of objects and the use of objects in our magic. So arranging objects, ranging them, and what mediums we use to connect them. So in a really traditional sense, you have the picture that's behind you, Lindsay, where you can see highlighted these different objects that I have woven into the portal that is behind you. They're kind of zoomed in around you. And so we have an antique sort of metal handle that fell off one of my cupboards. We have a coin that was given to me by my friend's dad about St. Christopher, who is a patron saint. And I think, I'm pretty sure quite important in Ireland. But he gave it to us when we went traveling and backpacking for the first time when we were teenagers. You have the mushrooms over on the right-hand side of your screen. So yeah, there's kind of the frame, and then there's all these other elements that you can add to increase the power of your portal. And when we think about maybe putting a portal online, did you want to share the landing page again, the portal?
Of course.
Mm-hmm. So I've kind of tried to put this into practice myself a bit here. And again, because of the experimentation aspect, I guess, of this project for me, as someone who has always kind of worked in physical space, or hasn't really had experience in kind of the coding side of things. Some of it might not work super well on different people's computers, but we're kind of working to develop that as part of this project. So we have, embedded objects that are digital objects. They are JPEGs and they are hyperlinks. There's buttons, and even beyond maybe ideas of if you're planning to make like a virtual portal, then maybe you're looking at things like Photoshop layers or collage materials that you add to your frame and how you blend them. So potentially different, visual effects that you use to blend them. But also things like code blocks and the use of different coding tags. So, some of these images that I've put around this virtual portal are hyperlinked, some of them aren't. Some of them have alt text, which can be read by a screen reader. Some of them will lead to a download. Some of them will lead to a form. And I think in our kind of expanded idea of sort of the object-based magic, there is that opportunity for sort of digital objects to work in the same way. to answer your question.
Perfect.
So yeah, we in our PDF have 2 different systems for object use that we've included. So you might want to go off those for your building of portals, and this will kind of imbue your portal with this kind of power, depending on what you choose. So we have the 3 object system, which lists objects relating to like memory or emotion, something that will represent the place and the agency of the place where you're working, and something that ties you to the portal, which we might go into in a bit. And then we have the 7 object system, which basically includes those 3 and then 4 others. So something that confuses, hinders, or repulses you that relates to your intention, or something which has found you, something which is hidden, or something which is absent. So those are kind of just like loose guides for how you might want to choose the objects for your portal when you make your contribution to our portal ecosystem. Those things will impact how you kind of upload and charge your portal to the bigger project. So then, yeah, we have assembly of the portal. So this is the process of after you've collected all of those things and chosen your space, putting them together, arranging them, choosing where each thing sits. And this is a very personal kind of aspect that we think you should very much just kind of tune into what your own intention is, and either plan or improvise depending on what your intention is really, and how you feel about what you're trying to do with this portal. You might also, we've included on the PDF, you might also want to consider the designs that other organisms have kind of shown in their construction of portals. So on our webpage, we've already begun to build the portal ecosystem. Do we have, Lindsay, could we maybe go into that bit?
Yeah. 1 second.
Right, so yeah, so when you scroll down, you'll begin to see that our collection of portals is quite new still, but it's starting to grow. And we have basically the portal that is behind Lindsay in the middle at the bottom. We have a couple of portals that we have found in different environments that might be to do with habitat or perhaps resource use. I think maybe the one in the middle at the top is possibly some kind of mine shaft or something, or a cave or something like that. And we even have an example on the top right of a digital portal that you were asking about, Lindsay. So something that kind of gives an example of that, where there's like a frame and some, I think it's ringworm, like fungal skin infections, and then kind of bordered by the mycelium hyphae of that fungi. And then we also have a lovely kind of, I don't know, tough and tender portal, I'll say, at the top left, which has daisy chains woven across a loom sort of shape that's sort of more oblong or harp shaped, made out of a woody material that's made from weeds called moth vine. So yeah, if you're a bit stuck, hopefully our kind of archive of portals will keep growing, and you can always refer to this for ideas if you need to, yeah, develop that a little bit. Where are we up to?
I was wondering, what is everyone making? Or has been able, what are people gathering?
Has anyone had any ideas or anything as well? Perhaps if you weren't prepared on arrival?
Ooh, and that looks really cool.
yeah, what are you up to? Did you get the seaweed?
Yeah, so this is my very quickly constructed seaweed portal.
Wow.
Some blue mushrooms hanging from the top. And at the moment, I'm interested in exploring where seaweed and mushrooms cross over, because often when I tell people about my seaweed research, the first thing that comes to mind is something amazing that they learnt about mushrooms, and just sort of working out where the two organisms intersect. But I met Jessie for the first time the other day, IRL, and we had a bit of a portal conversation, and I told her about how I want to create some physical portals to transport groups of people from the inner city of Melbourne to the ocean for seaweed exploration. So this is a good little model, I guess, of what a larger physical version might be.
Yeah, that one, that conversation really got me thinking about the kind of the, I guess the much larger spatial portals, things like ocean currents and that sort of thing. So yeah, we love building portals between different people, and yeah, thank you so much for, yeah, this is incredible. I love the form of that as well. It's amazing. Where is the seaweed from?
From a beach in Victoria called Port Road Night, which has a really amazing shoreline of rock formations that look like sort of dripping sandcastle kind of forms. Wow. And there's always a pretty incredible selection of seaweeds that have washed up on the shore there. There's another one just here that I've got. I've now covered my bed, which is just next to me, in seaweed, so it's going to be an interesting sleep tonight. A red seaweed, and it's being underlit by my phone, but these just change so much when they dry out, and then when you rehydrate that'll become really pink again. And they go from sort of like soft and fleshy to kind of leathery, and then extremely brittle and crunchy. So pretty amazing just seeing the way they change. And I've held it together with hair bands, which was just something that I had around, but I also like the idea of the sort of human and seaweed intersection, and especially the sort of feminine angle, because seaweed has a history of being kind of a women's business.
Yeah.
Food farms and food preparation and things like that. So I kind of like that idea. Just before I finish, the human seaweed intersection that I've been looking at recently is this amazing sort of medical factoid by an Australian seaweed expert who started up her own seaweed farm, and she was investigating. Have you read about this woman? I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she was investigating how seaweed and sort of agar type jelly solutions are the perfect biome for growing human cells out of. So for replicating human tissue, growing human tissue within this seaweed jelly solution, it's just the perfect complementary kind of environment that can create new human life out of seaweed. So I was just sort of super intrigued by the possibilities around that space.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting. I feel like my work with Lindsay as well has given me a very different idea of also portals that are related to maybe collecting knowledge, all these things. And even for one of our workshops later, like thinking about how maybe microscopes and petri dishes and these kinds of things can also be a kind of portal into like the microscopic world, or those kinds of things. Because yeah, again, it's about getting to access things that we might not otherwise be able to. Yeah, which is great for better understanding our non-human kin even.
Yeah. Like, and my favorite thing about your portal, how it's becoming kind of like a physical manifestation of your name in a way, combining algae with fungi is what lichen is. So that's that's wonderful.
Yeah. So, I was given the name Lichen at birth, and then changed my last name by one letter to Kelp to sort of continue this algal theme. And that came just before sort of coincidentally deep diving into seaweed through just all these different references that were coming up around me. So the name sort of informed in a way this research that I've been doing.
Yeah, that's incredible to like, I don't know, to even have that sort of, yeah. It's like I'm not sure that it would be unrelated, but like to be able to embody like something that you kind of were just given in that way is quite incredible. Just when you mentioned also like the kind of using your own hair ties and things, I thought I might mention that kind of third aspect of the object systems that brought up, which borrows from Contagion Magic, which is kind of something that we should probably address because there's some things to consider if you're going to try to use anything to do with Contagion Magic. It's kind of had a bit of a bad rep because of its misuse or abuse, or also the way that people have talked about it, because it seems like something that crazy witches would do or something. But anyway, we use Contagion Magic responsibly in Ecomancy, and we do accept the use of it by advanced ecomancers if they are practicing it in the interest of the, in the interest of like kind of the diversity of life forms and the subsistence of the ecosystem. But for beginners, if you're not familiar with it, I'll kind of just explain a bit about it. So Contagion Magic is a form of magic that links two entities or objects together, quite relevant in portals. And often it is done by linking two entities via like maybe their physical materials. So it includes any magic that uses, the body parts of a person and someone else, something else. They're kind of, very, complicated ways that maybe witches and things are described to use people's hair or blood or things, includes Contagion Magic. Often it's described as something that is quite evil, and it doesn't have to be. And it entirely depends on how responsibly you use it. So for our portal building, we kind of want to just like get you a bit used to maybe doing Contagion Magic. So this means that we would like you to choose an object that will connect you to the portal. For me, in the spirit of the witchiness of things, I have the length of my hair that is, before I cut it all off, something to connect me to, I guess, the feminine that I have gotten rid of, but that I want to keep as well. Basically, we just kind of only advise you to use Contagion Magic where it is within the explicit consent of the participants. So if you want to use something from someone else, well, that would be using Contagion Magic to connect or affect them, that you make them aware of what you're doing, and that you get their express consent in doing that. So that is the third part of the three object system. And
Jess, I was wondering, what about for things that may not be able to consent, and also like things like if I put my portal outside, I had a physical one, and I put it into the park in Berlin, and something was to interact with it, what then?
Yeah, so we can't necessarily account for all of the different actors in our portal, which is kind of one of the wonderful things about it. I didn't realize that the olive tree portal that's behind you was like the home of so many creatures until I actually started building in it. And then I discovered that the portal I was building was also the home to snails and moths and things, because like I disturbed them. So I think contagion magic is quite specific and deliberate. So it's not that anything that you interact with is going to be contagion magic. But when you choose that object that will link you to the portal, or that will link you to someone else, and you in your mind intend for it to be contagion magic, then that would be the thing where you want to get the express consent. So maybe that means that you don't use things that you can't get the consent of. And even in other kinds of engagement with objects, or the frame or the binding or anything like that, the place, you still want to kind of consider like whose use are you interrupting, and what are the effects of that. I think part of this is about kind of consciously addressing that all of the things we do, all of the things we build do affect, there is an impact for all of it. So it's not possible to really build a portal without engaging with these things. The responsibility for us as ecomancers is to consciously address what impacts we are making when we do these things, and then accept, and then factor that in to like, how long do we leave it there for? What do we remove afterwards? What do we move out of the way before we start, and things like that. And there's no sort of specific answer to that, but I think for this, it's more about noticing and thinking about it, and thinking about how all of these things will affect the power of your portal. So, and the impact of your portal and the effects that it has. So if you want to have control over that, you should think about it. If you don't, then maybe you don't think about it. Yeah, does that kind of answer your question? I feel like it's very like...
Yeah, no, for sure. It gives me a lot to think about.
Dare I say, like, is it worth saying, like, oh, it sounds, maybe that sounds really hippy dippy, but we're like here making, portals for ecomancy. So anyway.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good thing to think about, especially in terms of like when we think portals themselves are like a warping of space. So like thinking about space and how we inhabit it as well is very important, especially in terms of design. I'm curious to what other people are making though.
Yeah, do we have anyone else who's like kind of in the midst of something, or starting to form even an idea, even if it's not in physical space just yet?
I'll talk.
Hello.
If I can. I lost my voice. I don't normally sound like this. So I have this. So I'm a screen printer, and I've had a really busy few weeks, which is probably why I got sick. But anyway,
it's not COVID.
No, I can't adjust. It's fine. So I have this stack of paper, these long kind of pieces of paper that I cut off some prints that I recently made. And when I was thinking about gathering materials for the workshop, my mind immediately went to paper, because I was thinking of frames, and what is the thing that I use a lot of? It's paper. What can I can sort of mold a frame into, or mold paper into a frame. So I just kind of started playing with it, and formed, this is the thing I used to do, like when I was bored at school, kind of get strips of paper and sort of concertina them together like this.
Oh, are you doing like Moebius strips?
Maybe ultimately. But yeah, so you end up with this funny kind of concertina.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that for a long time. Wow.
Then when you get
like
to
kind of
the
almost like a spring made of paper.
Yeah. So then when you get to the end of each strip, you kind of have to join another one on. And you could like tape it or glue it, but I've been doing some sewing lately, just like hand sewing this thing, which I could probably sew on a machine in about 10 minutes, but it's taken me about 3 weeks to get through half of it. But it's been quite nice. It's something I do while mostly whilst trying to stop myself from going on my phone, to be honest.
The bad portal.
Yeah, the bad portal, the phone portal.
There are no good portals or bad portals.
True.
You're right.
There are maybe good designs.
Maybe
All
you're
about
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I started sort of sewing it together with thread like this. I don't know if you can all see it, but
Oh yeah.
as
It does look a lot like your it looks like the frame that you're making.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Which I kind of didn't intend as I was poking the holes in to do the sewing, but then kind of as I was doing it, you mentioned something about I think it was about like the portals that non-human things make, and I immediately thought of bees. And I recently learned a little bit about bees, and was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this pattern could be like a honeycomb shape? And then realized that actually if I sort of was sewing it and if I connected all of the lines up, it actually kind of does make a bit of a like hexagonal shape.
So are you talking about like the bee portal as like the honeycomb? Like
yeah, maybe the honeycomb is a kind of portal. Yeah, bees are, I have a lot to learn about bees, but there's some pretty exciting things that happen within the honeycomb cell. So there's, first it gets made by the worker bees, and then an egg gets laid in it. And then depending on, whether that egg was fertilized or not, depends on whether it becomes a drone or another worker bee, or potentially if it gets fed the royal jelly, could become a queen. Yeah, it's really
I like the idea of kind of each hive being a portal to kind of the next one, and the way that that each hive kind of then produces another queen, and then they move out to like the next outpost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really, I was talking, so I've been doing a sort of a gardening course. I call it farm school. And each week we're doing a different topic. So bees was one topic, and chickens, looking after chickens was this week's topic. And we were talking about like the responsibility that, if we're going to keep animals, be they chickens or bees, in a system that is not their kind of normal system, or then we kind of have to take responsibility for what happens to them. And so like, the idea of like when the hive replicates through swarming, you have to then, if you made it, you kind of have to be responsible for it. So
I've had some friends who have kept beehives, and they've had to like find new, it's like if a cat has kittens, and you suddenly have to find, like, because they've started a new hive at the other end of your yard, having to, and like, actually having to physically put a beehive on the back of a truck and stuff. It's quite strange to think about. And then apparently also they have this memory of space that does connect them to their original hive or to their original place, and they will try to go back. Like they can easily just turn up again.
You have to move them a certain distance so that it's outside of where they would normally travel, so they don't just go back.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like cats. Like, isn't that the thing when you move them? Like if you move,
they can return like home.
Yeah, you might go back to your old house if you haven't gone far enough. Anyway,
and those are really like strong. Like, but I think it's really useful to think about those kind of maps and roads that work as portals for non-human kin, and that those are also designed and remembered and recorded. There are these other agents of portal making, I guess, around us, who are disintegrating our portals and repurposing them and using them for their own gain. We have like
true. We're not the only ones.
invasive species who like weren't deliberately introduced, but who kind of just hitchhiked on boats and other things like that, that come along with us without us knowing, and you know, totally within their right to do so.
Also interesting to think about in terms of some of our issues today about broken links.
Yeah.
Like portals that take you places, but those places no longer exist in a way, but they still take you to the place. It's just not there anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, maybe that's something that I can talk a bit more about with our project on the internet, which is that, yeah, a big part of that is just us as kind of artists who tend to work in the physical space, or like not in coding. And there's a lot of people at this festival who are very like, you know, that's their kind of their whole thing, which is like fantastic. And I'm super stoked to be able to connect with those people, because I just have not much experience of it myself at all. And I know like you, Lindsay, like you've mostly worked in sort of bio art, but still kind of the physical materials and maybe a bit of like cinema. And like, I mean, I've done like I do digital art, but I've not really engaged with the kind of coding element of it or connecting it in this larger sphere. Is that cool?
Yeah. No, usually when I have software things, I just like call my friends who are good at software things, and I'm just like, tell me what I need to do, and then I do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I kind of never thought that I'd be like in a position where I'd be like, hey guys, like we're going to try to build a portal and it's going to have all this crazy hyperlink stuff, and we're going to make web chaos. But I think that it's a good experiment for us and in general, because yeah, even in some of the limitations of our project, we can kind of see and actually test like how kind of extensive this is. So the website that you go to that we're running is hosted by Squarespace, and I kind of came across this amazing term from the artist Alice Wanzhang. I'm sure I mispronounced it, but anyway, who's the founder of Virtual Care Lab, and she had this great project called Open Garden, which was kind of a pun on the term walled garden or closed ecosystem, which are like literally the computing terms that are used to refer to the internet, where a service provider owns and controls the content, the media, and the access. So, you know, when you upload a link to Facebook, Instagram, Squarespace, Google, etc., they own that technically. And they can decide whether you can keep it there or not, and yeah, who else can access it and so on. But yeah, so like, because we don't have this experience, our experience of the internet is to engage with these portals that have been made easy to access, and the others have been made difficult to access. So even trying to do what they're doing on a Squarespace site is not really how it was intended to be built. So when you go to the page, you might find that it is like not responsive, because I'm learning how to make that happen, because we're trying to use these tools that are accessible to us at the moment as a way of figuring out how to tunnel our way out of this walled garden, basically, of the internet. And the portals that you're creating and that you upload can also help us to keep kind of developing new experiences of that. And yeah, a bit of a demonstrative learning experience, because I feel like most of the time I've ever encountered art that engages with this, it's quite finished and polished, and you know, it's very impressive and it's great, and also it seems sort of weirdly unachievable. So I think a big part of this is just kind of learning through doing, and yeah, and running into these walls that are there. So when I'm like building the website, I can do so much customization that I do bump into a wall that is like, no, you're not allowed to do that, sorry, like, because you need to pay us more money to be able to edit that bit or something. And yeah, I think like trying to figure out how to circumvent that has kind of just added to our sense that like this kind of experimentation So building portals in physical space and thinking about what they do, and then kind of translating them into chaos magic and into the internet. Yeah, it's kind of just shown how much more important it is to kind of consciously engage with these systems that either create or prevent access. Yeah,
I agree. I also think ironically we ended up summoning a lot of web chaos and even trying to get to this workshop through the portal here, since we first ended up in the wrong room for you guys. So I think ironically we've already, even intentions are so important, and I think when you're making your portal, that's something really to think about, because we summon chaos without thinking too hard about it, Jess, already, with all our links and things.
Exactly, yeah. And it kind of just shows how complex these ecosystems actually are. And yeah, I guess that's a really good reason why a lot of people haven't engaged with them. And I think, yeah, the tendency is to just feel really overwhelmed by that and excluded from it, and just pay for or just, you know, just upload your pictures to Instagram and all these things, which are like very, you know, useful. You got to connect with the portals that exist to be able to even meet the people who also are interested in this kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess experimenting with ways of kind of tunneling our way out and you know, sharing tools and things, which a lot of people are already doing. But I guess I feel like we're kind of coming from this background in ecology and things, which is, I think, yeah, maybe informing a kind of interesting approach to it. You said something really good, Lindsay, at the opening about the kind of what is natural and what's technology kind of side of this. Do you want to?
I can go back to that, yeah. Well, in my own creative practice, outside of Jess, I like function as both very high tech and low tech all at the same time. Usually curators are quite surprised when I show up with my artwork because they're like, oh, I work with stem cells and cancer cells usually, and genetically modified organisms, for those who may not know of my own practice outside of crawlers. But they always expect that I come in with like these very high tech microscopes and scientific equipment. And in reality, I usually end up like hacking like a snake egg incubator and just like taking out all the shelves, or like I just have a bunch of projectors and like very homemade DIY microscopes or things like that. And they're always so surprised at like the contrast, I guess, of high and low tech. So when I think of
art, is that art people who are surprised by it, or science people?
Usually just like the gallery manager who has to help me install, or the curator.
I was gonna say, because I studied conservation biology and I have a bunch of friends who studied science, and I think that it's under people have this idea of science where it's very high tech.
Yeah.
And not that you know, just doing some of this research and stuff is basically just taking existing technology and kind of hacking it or making some sort of janky device that maybe isn't what it was intended for. And I think that's been my experience with coding. I assumed that people knew these languages kind of off the top of their head and that they learned them and they could do all these crazy things with it. And the reality is that all of these things, everything that everyone uses to build on the internet, you can right click on a page and it will show you the source code, and you can copy it and paste it and you can put it anywhere else. And it might not work, but it's you know, there's heaps of other websites as well which just have all these different bits of code block that you can just copy and paste and move it, and no one's building any of this stuff from scratch. We're building it using the objects that other people have left behind and that are moving around and that circulate and evolve. You know, none of it's like kind of new materials. The internet itself is just like some cables that run across like the globe, you know, that you know, are electrical and that connect us. So I think, yeah, there's like an opportunity to sort of demystify that technology. I love that. Yeah, the idea that of expecting like that a lab artist would be not doing the same thing, that or maybe a lack of awareness that is actually what scientists are doing a lot of the time.
For sure. No, definitely all the scientists I work with do that. But also at the same time, it's interesting then that these devices and these objects that like cause that contrast end up also becoming like, without the incubator to take care of the cells couldn't exist. These like techno-scientific extensions support life and life needs it. And so I think like the point that that I was talking about within the lightning talks is like, what is natural anymore when life needs technology? And even if it inhabits all these forms and has all these contrasts between high and low tech and like DIY and hacking, and in design, that's I think really important. So what does life take us, and what is natural now? Especially if we think of nature with the capital N, which is become a taboo term in itself, especially when you talk to a lot of scientists and ecologists and things like that, because we're not really sure what natural or pristine is anymore, since everything's become so infiltrated. And so when we think of our portals, we are fusing both like culture and technology and the natural world all in it together in very interesting and kind of creative ways. So I think
especially I think, and I'm definitely like not kind of keen to go too far into this because I'm not like the right person for that, but I guess the kind of ideas about like I guess culture being historically, culture and nature being diametrically opposed in a way that also means kind of like cultured or civilized and then other, you know, but yeah, I think there's a really important distinction to be made there, because the idea that there weren't kind of existing technologies or civilizations or things when someone comes along to when culture, civilization arrives in a new place, forgets like all of the other agents that have built that space, basically.
For sure, that's a great point. And I think like I think portals is like our kind of answer to like addressing these sort of expectations between high and low tech, whatever natural may be, whatever cultural may be, and all these sorts of narratives that have existed in sort of like our web, and kind of like taking them and warping them and seeing where that leads us into maybe a new space. Maybe it returns us to some kind of old spaces from the archive and the data stream, when maybe it takes us to some more imaginary, non-existent places that could exist or could never exist, or maybe will only exist within our imaginations as well.
Yeah, and even when we talk about like high and low, like I think I hadn't realized kind of how pervasive that kind of terminology is in magic, like, and the history of kind of magic, at least in a Western sense, which is kind of a lot of the resources that I've read about it, mainly because of my own background and trying to understand some of the histories of that, being from like kind of Scotland, Ireland, England, in my own heritage. And this division of high and low magic that's kind of explicitly stated. And high magic is actually practiced indoors. High magic is inherently esoteric and secret, and it includes ritual magic, which is prescriptive, and you have to be indoctrinated into the secret society to be able to learn how to do these things. And and it includes building these big marble kind of archways and gateways and things, and creating kind of limited access. And then low magic refers to this other form of magic that's kind of been kind of in the Western psyche seen to be very dangerous and witchy and so on, because it was owned by the peasants who were building their own rituals and things out of maybe bits and pieces that they could get from the wealthy, from these secret societies, and then also practicing it outside in the woods. And
hey Jess, sorry to interrupt you, but it
right.
seems some people in the chat need to leave, so why don't we quickly explain how they can charge their portal and share it with us before everyone has to go.
And I hope you all enjoyed my rambling, and anyway, I hope you can make a portal and that you have some things to think about. So there is the website, and there's also the kind of guide to building portals.
So if you go to our website and you click charge your portal here, it will take you to a new Google form, which we are reluctantly using Google to support. as we are hacking new systems to figure out new ways. And it should come up with, you need to fill out a couple of things to help us construct the digital presence of your portal. And you can then add your final documentation of your portal down here. If you have any problems with us, you can also email us and we will be more than happy to assist. I will put our email.
We also have Instagram if you prefer to contact us.
Yeah. I'll put all of our contact
better.
information into the Discord with Uroboros, so that it's there for the rest of the festival. And yeah, if anyone's still around and wants to share what they've kind of done, I think now would be a great time to do that before we kind of close off.
Is Mary Louise still here? Because I just know, but oh my gosh, I just got to read the description of her portal and I'm really excited. Sounds amazing. But yes, this is like an ongoing project. And even if it's like building something and then submitting it and then it, you know, you come back to it like a week later and it's changed, like submit twice, whatever. Yeah, we kind of just want to kind of keep growing and changing this ecosystem, and I guess for as long as it will last. Obviously, eventually it will disintegrate, but yeah, for now, hopefully we are building it. So yeah. Was there anyone else who had any thoughts? Like I've talked a lot, so I don't know, maybe I would really love to hear more people's thoughts on like their plans for what they might build, or if there's anything that they didn't understand or anything that I've missed that you've thought about before. Yeah, please feel free to share.
And if you don't have anything immediately now, just feel free to use the Discord always. That's what it was envisioned for anyway.
Yes, I will be there and Jess will be there to answer anyone's questions. We are active on Discord as well.
Or join the crawlers for all the other events as well at the festival.
Yeah, we have the tarot deck and the tarot sessions. I think tomorrow night's booked out, but maybe Sunday and then next weekend. And then Lindsay is leading us in a kombucha reading. So kind of similar to reading tea leaves, but reading kombucha, which is called Consuming the Mother, which I'm really excited to see as well.
I really want to hear about other people's portals if there's time as well, but I just wanted to share what I've been doing, which is that having taken this ceramic frame from my studio, I've kind of got this assortment of scraps of bits and pieces from recent projects and bundles of thread, and I've been twining a lot of these scraps together into cord, which is something that I like, that I do a lot and feels quite powerful, because you're taking these weak things, these scraps, and then twisting them and twining them until there's something that's quite strong and beautiful. And so my plan is to kind of bind the frame with these scraps, bind around it, even though it's not structurally necessary. Because something about taking these things that are kind of remnants and forgotten and bringing them together to make something that's kind of that's kind of powerful and keeps that flow of materials going. That's what I've been making.
Yeah, and I think that the process of binding something together or wrapping it can be, it can bring different things in that are not objects into the construction of your portal. So I wouldn't say it's not functional. I would say it's adding to how the portal will function. Yeah, and as in fact twined the if you look at the background that Lindsay's behind Lindsay, the orange sort of thread is from Anna. So thank you for that. Yeah. Was there anything else anyone else wanted to share, or is there anything I've missed, Lindsay? I don't know.
I think we're good. I think we got most of it. We really are excited to see whatever everyone's been in the chat telling like of their plans and like where they're going to make them, which is really great. I'm excited that everyone is so like keen on going out and finding their space to make their portal, and all the materials look really cool. Someone's going to make good. Someone's going to make Sasha. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Is going to make turtles at the lake.
Whoa!
At their Unity campus. So.
Oh, I love that. Amazing. And yeah, also I guess something else to say would be that like anyone can contribute a portal. So if there's other people in your networks who kind of work in this area or who's you know you think would be interested in this, then like please let them know, forward it on. You know, we're gonna keep going with this probably for like we're launching it at the festival. We're going to keep going for hopefully long afterwards. So yeah, we want everyone to contribute.
Yeah, so it seems like most people have to go. So we'll end it here, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming, everybody.
Thanks so much for actually organizing this whole thing. And continuing with all the follow-up events. It's really super exciting. So thank you so much for dedicating so much time to us, you know.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to do all this weird. It's like someone giving you like being like, oh yeah, I'll listen to you, and you're like I have it all. Please, I've got so many ideas.
I can talk forever. Yeah, I know that.
For sure. Yeah, it's great. It's good.
Okay.
And to be connected with like-minded people as well is really great. Yeah.
Perfect. I will have to jump off now to start another workshop, but Enrique can probably stay here for a few more minutes if needed. But thanks everyone really for coming. And
yeah, thank you.